said, public property, we're going to break for lunch. No, I'm only joking. All right, with public property, Commissioner, please approach the testimony and proceed with your testimony, please. But we will be taking, for those other departments that are here and those who are here to witness our public budget hearings, we will be taking a lunch immediately following taking a break immediately following public property's testimony and lines of questioning. So thank you. If you want to state your name for the record and begin with your testimony. And thank you for joining.
Good afternoon now. Good afternoon, Council Majority Leader Henon and members of City Council. My name is Bridget Collins-Greenwald, and I'm the Commissioner of Public Property. With me today is Lori Davey, our Deputy Commissioner of Administrative Services. In the interest of time, we have submitted written budget testimony before the hearing, so I will just mention a few of the accomplishments we have had this year. These were all achieved because of the dedicated staff of the Department of Public Property. I would also like to acknowledge that this year is going to see 3 of our very dedicated deputies leave city government after long and fruitful careers. Gary Napick of Capital Programs, John Herzens of Real Estate, and Lem Gibson of Facilities have all contributed to countless numbers of successful projects in this city and will be sorely missed, especially by me, but by our whole staff, and I'm sure by many of the members of council that have worked with them over the years. This will be the last budget testimony for all 3. Some of the accomplishments achieved by the Department of Public Property are as follows. We continue to enhance the experience in City Hall by adding additional lighting to the portals, installing more historic photos where we see the most visitors. The latest are on the 7th floor by the tower. By designing and installing new landscaping in the aprons and courtyard, painting of the entire building, resurfacing the entire northwest portion of the apron, installing new ceilings in our magnificent hallways, and finally our most exciting project, installing ornate gates on the building. Most of you know that there have never been any gates on City Hall's portals, so this was a great accomplishment. The gates were just selected to receive a grand jury award from the Preservation Alliance, which we are very excited to accept in May. Speaking of awards, one of our own deputies also won a very well-deserved award this year. Gary Napick will be receiving this year's American Society of Civil Engineer Philadelphia Section's prestigious award for Government Engineer of the Year. Gary's still here, I don't know. There you go, Gary. Congratulations, Gary. We're very proud of him and all his accomplishments. He was just, oh, he's there. He didn't stand up. Stand up, Gary. He was hiding. There he is.
Yes.
Very, very well deserved. We made numerous space moves and renovations to space to accommodate the new administration and its staff, as well as our 5 new members of City Council, with minimal lead time and with a very expedited schedule. Our real estate and facilities teams both worked diligently to ensure work was completed timely, on budget, and with our customers' needs in mind. Working closely with the Council President's Office, we continue to prioritize future construction and maintenance activity in City Hall and the Council areas. Look for this room to be painted over the summer recess. We continue to promote an atmosphere of performing preventive maintenance over reactive maintenance, and the numbers this year have showed that initiative is paying off. In fiscal year 16 to date, only 1% of our work orders have been for emergencies. 85% were for preventive or routine maintenance, and 14% for the longer-term planned construction projects. We created a FIT team, a facilities improvement team, which utilizes the facilities assessment which was done on police and fire stations back in fiscal year 15 to prioritize minor renovation jobs in addition to the routine and preventive maintenance activities the rest of the facility staff performs. This team also coordinates with the Capital Programs Division to do major renovations. To date, we have completed major renovations in engines 70 and 71 and are currently in engine 69. We recently completed construction renovations to the Police Academy, the 35th, the 39th, the 22nd, the 12th, and the 26th Police District, to just name a few, with the addition of this new team. The outcomes have been very well received by our fellow city workers in both the police and fire departments. We were able to finally procure an asset management system which will allow the city to finally track and understand how resources are allocated for facilities, something the department has been advocating for years. In conjunction with the asset management system, we are looking to incorporate a space management component which will allow us to better understand vacancy trends and apply these newer space standards. We anticipate the asset system to be up and running in the fall. We provided support to over 260 special events last year, including the Papal Visit and most recently, the Villanova Rally and Parade. I received compliments from everyone who comes in contact with our special events staff on the dedication and professionalism they deserve, so I would like to take a moment to publicly acknowledge all of their hard work. We will continue to support the efforts to promote our city through these events in the upcoming year. This is just a glimpse into the accomplishments of the staff of DPP. As I stated earlier, I'm very proud and very fortunate to work with such a dedicated and hardworking group of individuals. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me just start off by saying I appreciate the daunting task that you have with all our public properties, and really look forward to, I think, the new approach that we're having. We're taking a look at our assets, taking a look at how much they're being utilized, what kind of spatial design that we have, what are we using for storage, how are we housing our people, and what kind of work are they doing, and how often they need to be in their workplace. So I know that's important to you moving forward, and I think I'm sure you and Rebecca Reinhardt have been having these kind of conversations as we're trying just to expand on Councilwoman Gibbs' questions about recruiting from the private sector, more professionals, and giving them a better atmosphere where they can have shared workspaces and make it a little more, I think, just a little more sexier to come to work, all right? And
we all want that.
You're right. So let me start my line of questionings with, I understand that there is a new work order system in place. Can you describe how that improves the city services and makes them more efficient?
Sure. So there's a work order system was put in place, implemented over the past few years, and it's been phenomenal because it replaced an old system of, we had a system apparently back in 2009 that crashed and never was put back up. So that system replaced a work order system of taking orders over the phone and faxing them to the various zones to try to get the work out. So obviously to track them electronically is a lot easier, and everything's done over this system. So what that system will do will feed into the new asset management system. So all the work orders, so each asset will now have a comprehensive look at what happened to it from the work order end, from the capital end, anything that any number of departments have done. So Parks and Rec is involved in this, Health is involved in this. It will link up to the budget system, so we'll actually know how much money's been spent. So then we can make more informed decisions, just like you were just talking about, on where do we house people, how much room do we have in this facility, is this asset worth keeping because we've thrown so much money into it, or do we finally say this asset we need to decommission this and go somewhere else? So this new system, which will be up in the fall, will help us make those more informed decisions.
That's great. And so, I think you answered my follow-up questions. Does the systems actually integrate with other departments and city systems?
Yes, it does.
So it does. And who will have access? Each department will have access, or is it going to be limited to a certain manager or supervisor to have access?
Each department will have access. Each department that has anything to do with asset management or maintenance or anything like that. There will be different levels. So if you have the administrative level, you'll have like the top level, so you can go in and tinker around with the system a little bit. But most people will have that enter in data, update data, enter in work order, whatnot. So yeah, we were actually working. We had a meeting Monday actually on determining what access levels.
And you will be able to track or somebody will be able to take a look at, see who's using the facilities at any given time.
Yeah, so like a read-only type, and not be able to go in and
correct. Okay, great.
Change anything.
Now I see that you have a plan for the facility reports for police and fire. Is there a facilities report, or will there be one available through the new system of all their structural systems and needs that are in orders, like our rec centers, our libraries, and other public properties?
So for the police, I can speak, yes. So the bigger answer is yes. For all the maintenance work orders will feed up into this new system, so you'll know what type of maintenance work was put into them.
So that will be in fall. So you police and fire.
Yeah. So
All the public properties.
Yes, so for police and fire, I can't speak for health and library only because we don't maintain those facilities, but for police and fire, back in fiscal year 15, we underwent a facilities assessment. So it's a complete assessment of what we needed to fix at that time. So when we create our capital plan, that feeds into the capital plan, but it also feeds into that FIT program I was just talking about, the facilities improvement team, where we're going to go next. So we say, okay, we did an assessment of engine 70, and this is what it panned out. It had this, this, and this. Let's do a capital project and have our facilities group come in and do that. So yeah, all that data will be captured in there.
Okay. If a department needs space, how is that request handled?
So there's a new space request there's a new space allocation policy. So what happens now is there's a form. We always have a form. So there's a form you fill out, and it has your space needs. It has your budget, how much money you may have budgeted for things, what exactly you need. So things like how many offices you need, how many workstations you need, what the function is, whether you have the budgeted approval. And then what happens is it comes to public property, the real estate division, who does a preliminary assessment on, okay, is there really funding in place? Do we have anything that could fit these needs immediately? How much work is this going to take if we don't? And what public property then does is makes a recommendation to the chief administrative officer's office, and then they review what our recommendation is. They may have some questions, they may not. Then it could either go one or two places, come back to us to do, dig deeper into the request, or it could be approved and go right to the space allocation committee, which consists of the managing director, the finance director, and the chief administrative officer, to make a decision, and then it will come back to public property, and we would just start doing the work, whether that's fitting out space or designing something or whatever the next step would be.
Do you know, or do we know, what the total value of our public property that the city owns?
We
Is
don't
there
know
market value?
We don't know the total value. We have some properties that have an appraisal value. We have some properties that have an OPA value. We don't have a complete comprehensive list of what all our properties are worth because we would want to do an appraisal for each one. So certain ones we absolutely know, like we could say, yeah, this one's worth this much.
So once the asset management system is up and running in the fall, is there a movement to try to, would somebody try to do appraisals of our
I think
city
eventually
property?
we would get to that point. Right off the get-go when it first starts, we wouldn't, because no information like that exists to feed into it. Well, whatever information we have, I shouldn't say that, we'll feed into it. But then as we start to get the system becoming more robust, yeah, I would imagine we would.
Well, maybe we should coordinate with OPA and see when they're making their when they're having their commercial assessments. We could incorporate city property. And I guess some of these other follow-up questions to that is, you may have to provide to the chair. So I'm not expecting you to know all the answers at this hearing here. Like, how many square feet of public property is underutilized or doesn't have a tenant?
Or doesn't have a tenant?
Or does not have a tenant?
Yeah, okay.
All right. And do we have a value of the property, all right, that is underutilized? Is there an advantage to keeping some of the property strategically located throughout the city, on call for use as needed? So I'll get those questions over to you, and you can provide them to the chair.
Sure.
All right. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon now.
Good afternoon.
How long have you been in your current leadership position?
I've been in my position about 3.5 years now.
Okay. You open up your testimony by speaking to the accomplishments of your division, and I commend your team member as well. We have to salute those who do extraordinary good work.
Thank you. They're a great group.
Speak, if you would, to a few of the challenges that currently exist with your department.
Sure. Obviously, a lot of our buildings are aging. They were all built, especially our police and fire stations. Our police stations were all built around the same time, so they're all kind of having the same problems at the same time, just like you would, in your house. So we try to stay on top of things through our preventive maintenance program, and we stay on top of things through routinely going through these things. But it's challenging because they are older, and some of them are just really not conducive to the way we do work right now. If you look at
sure.
the police stations, they have the
Technology and the
whole
like.
things. Now we have technology. Everyone has 50 things they plug into, from their desk. That just doesn't exist. So we struggle with that, but I think our staff stays on top of it, but we absolutely know it's a challenge.
What is the status of the police administration building? I believe it was the police commissioner where I posed a question, and I was advised to punt the ball back to you.
Okay. So right now, the facility out at 4601 Market is being worked on. We continue to work on the exterior package, so the whole entire facility has been gutted, the inside.
Okay.
It's amazing if you actually get a chance to get into the, it's a phenomenal, older building. when you
I
get
actually
in there.
worked in that building for Senator Hughes.
Oh, okay, yeah, so when you see it empty, it's quite remarkable. So we've got it, the building, we've remediated the building, so what we're doing now is removing the windows, replacing the windows, so we're removing the windows, doing the whole outside, the roof, the facade, and the windows. We're continuing though to have discussions on options for that building as well as others,
So the city has purchased it,
yes.
but it is not yet determined if it will be used for the new headquarters for the police.
We're just, we're just looking at some options. Only when a new administration comes in, we just want to say,
Sure.
here's what, here's what you're looking at to do an analysis. So we continue to do work on the
Very
property.
well. Let's move to the staffing part of the ledger. So according to my homework here, there are, at the executive staff level, are those all exempt employees?
The executive staff, on the testimony we submitted, the 5 that we submitted,
Yes.
yes.
And according to the testimony, there are no people of color?
There are not at the moment.
So what does that mean?
So the 3 people I mentioned that are leaving,
Yes.
3 of them are in our executive staff.
I see.
Yes, so we've been working with talent, the talent in OHR to see where we can recruit with some of these issues. One person has an heir apparent that has been approached to see if she would be interested in filling that position.
I see.
And it would be we are working towards a more diverse workplace. We knew that we had at least 2 of these deputies were going out because they're in the drop. The one kind of threw us for a loop, but anyway. So we are actually working. I think we're making good strides in that area. I met with Jackie Linton actually yesterday, and we had a conversation about groups that she might know, like where can we recruit. Historically, we've put engineers in some of these positions just by the nature of the work in the capital and facilities. And we haven't pulled a lot from the minority field, but we have been lately. So if you look at our capital, which I know this isn't the capital budget, but the stats for our capital professional staff on the capital side, we have a ratio, and these are professional, higher level staff members. They're just not the senior team right now. We're at a 42% ratio for minority. So we are starting to see that trend change of having more people in that. So I envision when I'm back here next year having the same conversation, the makeup of our senior team will look a lot different.
Well, we would welcome that as well. And your current scenario is an example of what the CAO officer shared with us, and that as people are transitioning, hopefully for greater, better things, that's an opportunity for the leadership of departments to be serious about looking for qualified, competent professionals. And you should know that there's an association called the National Association of Black Engineers with the Philadelphia chapter, where you might be able to capture the kind of talent you're looking for.
Jackie actually is a member, and Jackie was an engineer in her former life, so she's a member, and we spoke about it yesterday.
Very good. Okay, I also noticed in your testimony that while you all are doing exceptionally well in the area of minority business contracting, unless I read this incorrectly, in the area of female, women-owned businesses. Did I read that incorrectly?
We have, I believe our contracting is at 68% let me just pull this up real quick. I believe it's at 68.5% for MBE and 27% for women.
Then I did misspeak that.
course, I have this big book, and of course I can't find it. Hold on a second. I'm almost positive. those
Okay,
numbers,
I may have very well misread it. With all of the work going on
Yes,
at the...
they are. I'm
it's
sorry,
27%?
68. It's 68.5 for WBE and 28.7 for...
Okay, I'm looking at the wrong data here. With all the work going on at the 4601 Market Street, where are you with regards to of the work that needs to be done? How well are you doing with regards to MBE, WBE activity for that particular building?
We've surpassed our goals.
Okay.
In almost every area, with local hires, Philadelphia residents, I believe we were at 63%. With actual people within the 5 zip codes
Okay.
that are there,
Okay.
we're at a high percentage. Let me
Very
see,
encouraging.
63% Philadelphians, 66% minority trades workers, 5% females. We're a little behind the goal on females. Our goal was 7. 12% of those Philadelphians, though, were from the local zip codes. So we're
That's an example that it can be done if one is serious about...
and I do believe Jim Lowe, who is our project director, who's over here, Jim headed up the Youth Study Center
Yes.
project,
Yes.
which is on the same lot, as you know, and he was very instrumental in keeping those numbers very high for that project. So he has experience in that. He's mentoring Pedro over there on how to do the same thing, Pedro Printout. So our goals our numbers have exceeded the goals that we've set.
Okay. I think we will have come a long way when we can have every city department provide data in the way that you just described, because it really matters that we have a government that looks like the city of Philadelphia. It's a broken record, but I'm going to keep playing it.
Sure.
Thank you for your testimony.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Commissioner. Wanted to talk a little bit around the lease agreements before I get to our city assets. Is there being a review of all of our lease agreements as they come due, and are we looking at creatively co-locating some of those private lease agreements into facilities, even in the neighborhoods? You know, and what role is your department playing in that?
I have a twofold answer to that.
Right.
Okay, so this asset management system is going to help us tremendously because it's going to track all of our assets. So you've probably heard me sit up here before and say we think it makes sense to co-locate some fire stations and police stations, and I know...
But I want to look at our expensive lease agreements, like the Crazy Curtis Center and all that other stuff we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the neighborhood.
I mean, not mix
aspect.
words here.
I kind of knew where you were going. So on the other side, our larger office space leases. So what we're doing are two actually other things as well. So we're putting out RFPs, and then we plan to put out in the next month or so, I'm hoping, an RFP to get a brokerage service, which we've never, we used it apparently a really long time ago, and it may not have panned out for whatever reason. But in all the brokers I've been working with, like just anecdotally, we're in meetings or you see them at different functions or whatnot, it seems like they could really help us. They know what's out there. They could figure out, okay, here's the square footage that you think you need, but how about, did you consider this, consider that? And I think that expertise is really going to help us. John Herzens, as you know, is phenomenal, and he comes up with things that sometimes I don't even know where he pulls them from because they're so creative. But I think this brokerage service is really going to be able to help us, too, to actually come up with more creative ways of putting things and getting out of some of our more expensive leases. I know some leases we are in for various reasons, and others we are in strictly because of the location or the cost, and they're the ones we have to look at.
So that we'll be tracking that as leases come up. How do we look at that? And then we had this conversation when we had the school district here. You know, one of the challenges as we try to save some of these school closures is really figuring out how you and Fran, which is
Yes.
how do we have that conversation and try to guide departments into that direction around, are there facilities that are available around the co-location pieces so that we're maximizing them? You know, I think certain offices need to be downtown, certain offices don't need to be, and they should be in neighborhoods as a way of us co-locating this. And so, you know, how are we driving that?
Well, you mentioned Fran, and as you know, Fran and I worked together for quite a few years. We probably do talk at least once every other week about this issue and others that are, where the city and the school district can work together. I call her all the time and say, do you have a place in, wherever I want it? She doesn't have one usually, but you know what I mean? But we do have those conversations. And I was explaining to her about this asset management system, how I think it's going to work for us. So I think when I have that data more, I can have more comprehensive conversations with her on what the school district and the city can do to either co-locate, or if it's leasing from that, or even vice versa, you know what I mean? So we have those conversations a lot. I think I need better data in order to have better conversations with her, quite frankly.
As we invest, and we were part of the facilities task force, we did the vacant land task force, so you and I have sat around talking about these task force, and we've done this assessment.
We're very task force oriented, we are.
And there's a lot of good information that we all learned in that process. I want to make sure that before we make significant investments in police and fire, that we really look at that, and I know Councilman Henon emphasizes the 15th, which we share, but I want to look at districts like the 26 that are caught in the middle of, an area that is up and coming, and literally they're building houses up to the back of it.
Yeah.
And we're in the process of looking at substantial investments in that. Police have a hard time parking there. I think that this is a great opportunity to say, where can we potentially move to 26? It's a high value property, so we can make some money off of it too. How do we locate, whether it's at Penn Treaty, for instance, that has tons of space,
Sure,
or other places, because I hate to see us make that investment when we're putting the department in a place that they can't grow.
And actually, we are working right now on a facilities master plan for police and fire stations. So that's we did that assessment.
Right.
So now this is one step further. So there's money in the capital budget to do this. What we're doing is looking at exactly what you said. Why throw a lot of money into the 26 if it makes more sense to relocate the 26? So we put an RFP out. We just had a pre-bid meeting last week. Over 50 different professional services firms came because they are anxious to work on this project. So I think by the mid next week, we will have the official proposal, the proposals in. We'll see where we go, but that's exactly what we want them to look at. And that we don't want to make decisions. Look, if the roof is leaking, we have to patch the roof, obviously, right? But we don't want to make a significant investment in a property where it does make more sense to move it, or it just doesn't maybe fit, it's outgrown its usefulness. And as I said to Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, we police a little bit differently these days, so maybe the building just will never work for us, even if it's in the great location, maybe it requires a new building. So all of that information will come out of that report. That report will be to us by the end of the fiscal year, by the end of this fiscal year.
Awesome. So
what we've also asked for is some low-hanging fruit to be given to us by October. So as the council president likes to tell me about the 22nd a lot, if that comes out that the low-hanging fruit is, yes, you absolutely do need a new 22nd, or you need a new 2nd and 15th.
Can that 22nd go to Strawberry Mansion? We're trying to save the campus, whatever.
And that'll all come out in the study. A lot of those details will come out in the study. So I think there will be a lot of collaboration too after we get that report. We wouldn't just go and
as long as we're making sure that people are not renewing up leases that we really need to examine, because we knew they were expensive when we went into them, and that we're trying to maximize, community schools, saving school buildings, all of those, people consider community anchors. I think that's important. I just want to make sure that you're part of those conversations, so that people, that you do have some sort of sway, because you have looked at facilities, the publicly owned ones and then the private. I mean, you've been in that mix. I just want to make sure new people don't come in and it's sort of like, no, I want to be over here because I want to be over here. That there's a protocol for it. Yeah. And that we're kind of streamlining that. Yeah. So I just want to give you the authority to say you need to be more involved in that, so people don't go crazy.
Gotcha. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. The chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner. First, I want to start off by thanking you. Great work you did over the 4th and Art Firehouse, and I know sometimes you always complain about the timing and how long it takes and the work that's done, but that was a great job done by your office, and it really makes a difference for not only the firehouse, but the surrounding community.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so great job. The other question I have is on 990, and I know we're looking to move on that. What is possible from that move, and if you had additional resources, what do you think we could do as far as personnel?
With the people that are in 990,
Yes.
or where to move them, or so what we're doing now is 990, and it's been an office lease that we've had for years. I mean, I used to have an office in 990 years and years ago when I was in Illinois. It's been around forever, and
Back in the 60s.
Ooh, I wasn't even born in the 60s, just so you know. So that was so uncalled for. So 990's always been that office building that we say, okay, we have this group. We're not renewing the lease at 990, and the next thing you know, we get a one-off group, and we say throw them at 990. And we've been doing it now for about a good 15 years or so. So we're finally like, okay, the lease is up in June of 2017, so we're getting everyone out of 990. Now, who's left? We have some small little groups in there. We have some groups that are police department groups, so shouldn't they really maybe go where the rest of the police department are? We have Rise in there, so let's maybe find another place for Rise. So we have some small, we don't have large groups in there because we've gotten most of them out of there. We just moved gun permits out of there, moved that down to 660 Erie, where it makes more sense to be like right centrally located in the city. There's parking, people can go there instead of trying to fight their way through 990 and parking and whatnot. So we're trying, I'm being windy, which I'm usually not on this. What we're trying to do is figure out exactly what we need in 990 and then go from there. But the number, it's shrinking. The space we need is shrinking. We're hoping it shrinks to really minimal, and then we can just use existing space.
So you think to move them will add less, we would need less money as far as the lease is concerned for a new property?
The 990 lease, I have to say, is very competitive. It's not.
But it's a
one
big
of our,
space.
It's a big space. It's not one of our higher rent per square footage leases. What it is we do have a lot of space there, and we do have a clause where we can't contract, or else it re-triggers the terms to be renegotiated. So that's why we keep throwing people in there, because we're committed to an X amount of space.
Right.
So do I see the space shrinking if we give somewhere? Well, gun permits alone went into a city-owned building, so that right there is a good story. We think we're going to be able to put civil affairs in the same facility, so that will be another group that's out of the 990 footprint. So by the time it's all done, we're not done with the complete requirements assessment of who needs to stay and who doesn't, because some of them are programs. We're not sure if the program's going to be there by June of 17 or where that might move. So yeah, I believe that the footprint should absolutely shrink just based on the work we've done so far.
All right, great. And the last question is, I know we have put in the budget for preventative maintenance in public property. And it was something that we were looking at as far as for other departments, Parks and Recs and whatnot. Have you seen that additional dollars, similar to the repairs over in 4th and Arch, has really come in handy, and do you believe that's something that should be continued?
I believe it absolutely should be continued. In part of my testimony, I said we are at a 1% level for emergency work orders now. That was not the case. We do preventive maintenance. As you know, we started that program. We do them at night. We do them on the second shift. Our guys, it automatically comes out of our work order system. Like, here's the PM. We hop on it, changing the belts, doing things with the boilers. There's a litany of things for HVAC, electrical, plumbing that we handle, and it's keeping the life cycle going. We did a big program where we checked all the laterals that were going into the firehouses. One of our big issues where we would get calls in the middle of the night where, stuff was backing up into the firehouses. Did the PMs on the laterals. We fixed about 6 or 7 of them. One extensively that was smushed, and then the rest of them that were fine. We haven't had a problem. So yes, I think it's paid off tremendously. To only do 1% with the aging infrastructure that we have in our buildings, I think is phenomenal.
And I think it's a model, and I want to thank you. I think it's a model that we should use all over, because it really shows that with a little bit of investment, how much money we could really save on capital improvements.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree.
It's a credit to public property, and so thank you for all your great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I have 2 other questions, and it should, unless any other members They went to Benson's. All right. They're over at the Veterans,
At the Veterans thing, yeah.
the Veterans Affair across the street, which is phenomenal. So
Yeah.
how much vacant property do you control?
We have currently about 6,400 pieces of vacant property that the city proper controls, so public property. We just transferred 10% of that over to the land bank. I am hoping that in the upcoming months and year to transfer almost all of it over to the land bank because it's surplus vacant property where they will have a budget to maintain it and whatnot and to put assemblages together.
So what's the timeline on transferring the remaining?
As soon as, what happens is I think what we have is the law department is working on the titles. PHDC gives them the list. They work on the titles. They work with council to see what should come in and out of the inventory. Then it comes over to me. I sign the deeds, it goes over to the PRA. They sign the deeds, and then it's conveyed over to the land bank. So it's a fairly quick process once it gets moving. But I think what has to happen is those conversations of what land can actually be transferred over, and there are conversations that PHDC is having with individual council members.
So
But I'll sign them as soon as I get them.
Yeah.
I
think a lot of
don't want
members
any more
will-
vacant
I
property.
think a lot of members will do the same. But so you're answering some of the questions, the follow-up questions to that. So how is a piece of land determined to be a surplus and transferred? So who determines that? PHDC determines that?
Yeah, PHDC, well, the land bank lives in PHDC.
Right.
Now, so that's where the land bank is. So it's,
So who identifies the 6,400 vacant parcels or property?
PHDC, the properties that we have, the 6,400, we got through tax foreclosure over the years and years. Some
Right.
of the property we've had for like 40, 50 years. But PHDC.
So PHDC or the land bank is taking a look at all 64.
All of ours, all of the PRAs, and all of PHDCs. Because all of them.
Correct.
All of us own separate properties. So yeah, they did a comprehensive look at what can go in the land bank now, what should we put in the land bank for assemblages, what should we just sell? So yeah, they did that analysis. The PHDC and the land bank staff, I should say. I'm sure Ann Fedulin can speak more on the process than I could, but just from when I was working on the
So if I
vacant stuff.
want to know what determines, all right, what
Yeah.
is surplus worthy of going to the land bank, so we can, start the process of the title search and any other kind of revenue delinquencies. That's why they're there
Yep.
in the first place. So PHDC or the land bank will have all that.
Yes, and they'll be able to
information.
tell you if it's something in your district that's maybe not city-owned but privately owned or whatever, they'll be able to tell you the process.
And when it comes to you ultimately, the quicker the timeline is just like, as soon as it gets to you, you sign off on it.
I
and it
immediately
goes
sign
out.
it.
Okay. And last, who takes care of public art? And how is it a budget?
Of public art,
And
the
fund.
budget flows through public property, but Margot Berg of Arts and Cultures is the public arts guru.
So what does that mean? So Margot.
Margot Berg.
Okay, so Margot takes care of the
Yeah.
public art, and that's within the Department of Public Property?
It's not within the Department of Public Property, it's in the Department of Arts and Cultures.
And they have their own
Office.
but they have their own abatement team or team that goes out?
I believe what they do is contract out their monies, Class 200 money, so I think they contract out to conserve art and whatnot.
Okay, all right, well, I'll ask
It
Margot.
passes, it's in our there's money in our budget, but we don't actually handle the.
Right, but it's in your budget, so if it flows through you over to...
Yeah, in the capital side, yeah.
On
But
the
if you
capital
ask,
side for arts and art, okay.
yeah, if you were real specific, you could ask Margot Berg in that group.
I'll certainly ask, but I think you answered a good question. So in the 5-year plan, you have a retro plan for public property in the future for retrofitting, energy costs?
For retrofit, I would actually have to bring Adam up if we wanted to speak on the energy process and program, because he actually takes the lead on that, so I don't want to say anything to.
You could state your name for the record, and I'll ask the question over. I'm going to lead in to that question first.
It's Adam McGallico. I work in the Office of Sustainability.
Okay, great. So we had an ESCO over the last couple of years, very successful, right, with retrofitting the quad. What were those utility cost savings and energy savings?
So the city invested in the quadplex, which is the 4 major downtown buildings. The total utility savings were projected for $1.4 million. We've so far been we've only received the second quarter of our measurement verification program, and we're on track to meet our savings projections. So we're doing.
Is that 1.4 a year?
$1.4 million a year, and of course that changes a little bit as energy costs kind of rise and fall.
Okay, so retrofitting in the future in the 5-year plan, do you have a cost estimate on projections of utility and energy savings?
We don't have a projection of utility cost savings. That's one project within an overall $30 million plus energy spend that the city has for kind of natural gas, electricity, the things that general fund is spending on. What we are working on is basically planning out our investment plan for city facilities in the general funds so that we can start to build out and see how we're going to meet both our energy reduction goals and then the associated cost benefits that come from those.
So in the 5-year plan, there's a $30 million capital investment in the retrofitting? Is that correct?
That I'd have to follow up with the budget office on. That budget's not in the Office of Sustainability's budget. That's something that's been talked about through the energy campaign.
We can follow off, and then we can, I'll put it succinctly in a series of questions that you can provide.
The understanding I have is that we're looking at major investments in the city's capital buildings, or through capital for energy performance contracts, modeled off of the Quadplex project.
All right, thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you. I just had a couple of questions, primarily on facilities management. There's a number of properties that are in the 8th Council District that are managed by public property, and wanted to get a sense of, in your statement, over the next 5 years, facilities management will increase preventive maintenance on city facilities from 30% to 40% to 60% by fiscal year 21. And I was hoping to get some details on that because it's critical to some of the properties that are managed by public property in my district.
Sure. So when we started the preventive maintenance program about 2 years back, I believe, what we concentrated on were the properties that we maintain. So that's the police and fire facilities. So we only maintain police and fire, and then a few like kind of one-off agency facilities.
Right.
So fleet and L&I. And so what we did was we concentrated on everywhere that we run. So what we do is we cycle through when we started, we did it twice a year because we just started, right? So what we do now is we try to cycle through on different times of the year depending on the season, depending on what kind of preventive maintenance we're going to do. So like if it's before the summer, we want to make sure all the HVAC systems are working in the facilities that we maintain. So we go through and do all that, and like a work order will pop up to our guys like it's a proactive work order instead of go fix the leak at engine 70, it'll pop up, do the PMs for these in your area. So how we have, and then for the heating season, it's the opposite. We do the boilers and whatnot. We're always changing belts. I have a whole list of everything that we do, and it's real technical, but our guys make sure that they go through and do that, at each facility. So it just prevents us from having to go out and do that reactive maintenance and the emergency maintenance, like I said. So we have it on a good schedule. We believe we can increase it somewhat. It took us a little bit of time to define what a PM actually was. some things we were putting in as routine or whatnot, or it's an emergency, and it's like, no, if we just did this on a regular cycle, it would be. So I think we're in a really good place now where our numbers will definitely pick up because we know this is a PM versus this is an emergency, this is reactive, and this is just a construction project that we're working on. Not just, but this is a construction project we're working on to get things done. So our guys are, they are assigned by zones. So we have Ridge and Cinnaminson is one of our zones that's up there. So we have, you know what I mean, they're all assigned. So it's very easy for them to deploy to each site that we have, like within their area. So, you know, we have one in Northwest, Northeast, South, Central. So that's the way that pans out. So it's been successful to date. So I imagine it will just continue to get more successful because it takes off the back end for us. Rather do it up front, plan it than not.
Okay, all right. And there's a couple of properties that, in specific, that I was thinking of, but you're saying that, or maybe let me put it this way: can you tell me which districts or which properties in the 8th district that you're responsible for outside of police and fire stations?
Yeah. If you give me 1 second, I don't think there's going to be much though outside.
No, I don't
of
think
police
it's a
and
lot.
fire.
I don't think it's a lot.
Yeah. Let me get my list up. I believe I have this by district. Oh. Here we go. Okay. 8th district. Well, our public property zones in there, the zone 5, the one I just mentioned, is in the 8th district. Everything else, these all look like they're police and fire. Police and fire, ladder, engine. Yeah, everything else is police and fire that I have on this list here. Do you have something specific
Well, what about another property located at, can't think of the exact address, but at the intersection of Coulter and about Pulaski or Morris, which is the Wissahickon Boys and Girls Club, which is a city-owned
It's okay,
and
so
maintained.
we don't really maintain that, but we did do
Not really.
No, well, we don't at all. We're not responsible for maintaining that, but we did the capital work and sent our staff in a few years back because of the conditions of the city-owned building. But it's really not something that's in our maintenance inventory. But we did that assessment and we conducted the work and we put the capital, and we worked with you guys to put your staff to put the
that's
capital
what I was
money into
asking,
it. Yeah, it's not really in our purview though. It doesn't really come in under our inventory.
Okay, because that's something that you just did for the capital work that needed to be done.
Yes.
In that particular instance. Okay.
Yes.
All right, great. All right, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Toltenberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then we're going to break for lunch.
Thank you. So I will be brief because I don't like to get in the way of people's foods. Ms. Greenwald, I want to thank you as a tenant here. You're sort of my landlord, but I want to say that your department is very, very, very good at keeping this building clean, particularly one that is so historic and in many ways so important to the city of Philadelphia. The City Hall is recognized by millions, not just in the city, but throughout the United States. And there were even comments made years ago that if City Hall were promoted properly, it will be a greater destination because the city halls, for example, in Munich and in other cities of Europe, the city halls are our point of destination. Munich, for example, has a great glockenspiel, so every hour there's almost a really a show. And being here and giving you those commendations, I also like to know if you have any particular plans for City Hall itself, for example, in the courtyard or in the portals.
We do. Actually, I should have probably maybe said this in the beginning. We just worked with the Planning Commission and the Water Department and just received a Placemakers grant, so a $200,000 grant to actually do some study, to actually put something concrete in the courtyard. If you've noticed over the past year, we actually put money aside to do the plantings in the courtyard and on the apron. It used to be real bare and there wasn't a lot in there, so now it's very festive. We have a landscape architect on staff, Debbie Cahill, who put a tremendous amount of effort and actually was in there digging herself and putting on the plants, and so we're beautifying it that way. We're working with this group. We have this $200,000 grant. We're told that it could leverage up to another $800,000, which is what past recipients have gotten. So the verdict's still out on that, but that's what we've been told. So I can see us putting something that'll make you attracted to the courtyard, but still keeping within its like more passive, reflective way in the courtyard itself. In the portals, we just did the gates. We just put the gates up, which, like I said, we won an award for, which is awesome. The portals, we just put some lighting
Who did
in.
you win the award from?
The Preservation Alliance.
Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah. We go next week, at the beginning of May.
I think they're a great addition. They look like they always were there, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and believe it or not, there have never been gates on City Hall. So the gates were designed and installed and fabricated and installed based on one little small drawing that MacArthur did, the architect. It was like this big, and we blew it up, and
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Point of information, if I may, Commissioner, Councilman, could you explain that they're the original schematics? Right?
Yeah,
and design of the gates, right?
He drew, MacArthur, the architect, drew one small picture, and it was this big, that we had, that we saw, and we blew it up. We gave it to an architectural firm, and they created scale plans, and we fabricated the gates and got them up, and yeah, they've been a wonderful addition. People stop me all the time to say, "Oh my God, the gates! They look fabulous." So we envision bringing more visitors into City Hall. So, I mean, we do work with the tourist, group and Greta's group and whatnot, and we've done painting around here, and we put historical images up on the 7th floor. We've discussed having tours that are maybe more of an off-the-beaten path, like a behind-the-scenes at City Hall tour.
That would be great.
Yeah, I figure you would like that. Last year, we held a ghost hunting event, and we actually... Yeah, we were in the paper. Joe Brasky, our building manager, was in the building supervisor was in the paper. He slept overnight with a bunch of ghost hunters and the Daily News. It was pretty cool. But people are really into it. So people like to know what's going on in City Hall. Like, what can they see? What's down there?
Sure.
So it's something we're looking into. I do have to be mindful and work with risk management on anything
Understood.
I'm going to do with that, and not just bring people into City Hall
Understood.
without them. But we think it's some cool stuff that we can do in here. Absolutely. I'm in agreement.
Many Americans are familiar with the term Ratskeller. Well, they really don't know where it comes from as a German phrase, but what it really is, in Germany and Munich and Cologne and every big German city, or even small German cities, the city hall is called a Rathaus. And a Ratskeller actually comes from the term that in each city hall there is a restaurant, generally, bigger ones anyway, particularly in Munich and in Frankfurt. And that's where the term Ratskeller comes. That actually means the cellar of the city hall. And would you ever see, or any possibility at some point, of having a German Ratskeller actually in City Hall? I mean, an actual restaurant?
A restaurant. It's been brought up numerous times. With space at such a premium on the first floor right now, we have, obviously, they're mostly offices on the first floor, and they're public-facing offices, a lot on some of them aren't. So it's been brought up several times. There have been studies done. I was just actually told that the former controller, Jonathan Seidel, did a study back 20 years ago on this very concept. So I'm going to try to dig that out and see what it looked like and go from there. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed, but I don't get to totally make the call on that.
I understand.
But I think it would be pretty neat. Yeah.
Well, I would help with that. I think City Commissioner Schmidt, who is also familiar with the term Ratskeller, might be willing to move his office. So we could have the beginning of I can't speak for him, but I think he certainly
We
would
have to
an
be
understanding
competitive
for
with what
Ratskeller.
kind
I
of
understand.
business we let in, but yeah.
I think it's kind of a fun thing, and that's why I brought it up, but
Yeah.
it could also be very attractive to tourism, which once again, this is probably the most ornate city hall in all of America, and in possibly, I'd go head-to-head and say it matches any city hall in Europe,
Oh, thank you. I agree. I love
or anywhere in
it.
the world, not just
I
Europe.
think the building's phenomenal.
Thank
so
you.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. That will be it for any questions, Councilwoman? Commissioner, thank you. Thank you for all the good work you've done over the years, and look forward to continuing the progress that we've made in public property.
Thank you very
All right,
much for your time.
Thank you. This
Thank you.
committee of the whole will stand on recess until 2 o'clock, and I want to thank publicly the court stenographer for the extended time.